Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and GoFundMe link in the info box below this video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, Eli, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good day to all.
Good day to
morning.
all. Good day to all.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good day, good day. As I mentioned in the intro, I've got a GoFundMe going. So, unfortunately, and as disappointing as it is for my 22-year-old speakers to have gone bang, they've gone bang. And as is the case in the most appalling part of the financial year in YouTube terms for me, that's when things typically break, and I have to stick my hand out and say, please help me, I need help. So I have pinned a link to that, and there is a brief blurb if you do go and link to this GoFundMe to check out exactly why it is I'm sticking my hand out and asking for help with broken equipment yet again, as is always the case with a small channel like myself. That said, I'm not in the slightest bit embarrassed. If something breaks, I can't afford to fix it. I use it to run the show, and that's why I stick my hand out as I have done. And hopefully I'll get some support. There we go. That's my GoFundMe. Check it out. Link will be in the info box and in the live chat if you're watching live. With that, I'm going to let Arwin in and do a bit of housekeeping. So, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Absolutely not. And I would love to give a parallel.
Hello, Arwin. A parallel? You can't have a parallel on a sphere surface either. What do you mean a parallel?
Of course you can't. Well.
No, it's curvature.
Okay.
Curvature.
So the story goes like this. My house is measured to be 1 mile away from the entry point of town, and I can see it whenever I enter town. And this particular day, I enter town, but I do not see my house. Instead, I see the hospital behind my house, and I also see my house behind the hospital. Now, the parallel. The horizon, 1 foot, is 1 mile away from the from sea level at the beach. I go to the beach and I look at the horizon, but it's not there because the oil rigs that's behind it, you can see them and you can see the horizon behind the oil rigs. There's a parallel. Obviously, the first one didn't make any sense, but that's exactly what you guys are trying to say about the physically measured distance to this physical geometric edge that should be physically somewhere that was already determined.
Yeah, I've made the similar example several times, and yeah, it's a good example. It's something behind a hill that you typically don't see because it's behind a hill, something physically obscuring it. You wake up one day and look out, and what do you know? The thing that's normally obscured by the hill's in front of the hill. The hill's behind it. It's like, no, that doesn't happen.
Well, you might be in big trouble with the tax assessor's office because now your property line has moved and you might owe more taxes.
Maybe.
Well, National Geographic give a perfect example of that when they showed that the bottom of the boat was being obscured by the horizon with the horizon behind it.
So it was a few ways to combat this is, well, no, because you're seeing around the obstruction. But what they mean by seeing around the obstruction is you're looking at something that's not obstructed because the light is bending around it to allow you to see the view of the thing that's behind the obstruction. But when I say where's the obstruction, you don't see it. How do you not see obstruction? That's the definition of something obstructing your view. You can't see what's behind it because it's the thing you see that's blocking what you can't see.
I see your point.
I see your point too.
Can you see I'm level-headed?
Yes.
That was a little corny. Whatever. I tried.
Any evidence that
It's
you
not
can
a
acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline?
Well, from what I've been able to tell from the rebuttals, if you'll let me beg the question of Earth being flat, I can explain to you how it's a sphere.
Black market.
There's no...
Go on.
I'm sorry, Nathan.
No, I was just going to say black market
There's no-
elevation angles are available if you want to get in touch or smash the super chat or support me via GoFundMe. Just let me know with a little note. You know, obviously we very much pity your plight in terms of your equipment failures, but on the sly, can you just give me an elevation angle from a flat Earth and I'll use it on my sphere layer? Just don't mention to anybody where you got it, right?
Yeah. Well, there's no evidence of being able to have a curved adjacent with an angle because it's not like I can Google and get an example. It's not like there's any examples in these navigation books or actually anywhere as it pertains to angles. There's nowhere you can find an elevation angle with a curved adjacent. It simply doesn't exist.
And yet,
No.
Eli, they say they're using a tool called a sextant, which measures angles. It's an angle measuring device, a glorified protractor. And they say it works off of a curved surface. Now, in their books, it's not really working off of a curved surface because in their books, it shows it working off of the equatorial plane. So they even in their books show you need a flat baseline. But of course, the sextant is being used on the surface of a sphere where the arc would be. And it's impossible for it to work there. And it's impossible for it to work from the center of the Earth where the equatorial plane is supposed to be because no one's there. You're begging the question, before you prove that we live on a globe, you assume it. And then you cut it in half, make a plane out of it, and say, see, we get an angle from the plane when we cut it in half because it's a flat surface, so it works.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Do you have to establish X and Y axes before you can get an axial tilt?
Yeah, you're going to need a flat Earth to infer that you can get a radius value to get your radians value. Yeah, you're going to need a flat plane for that.
Man, you guys are doing bad.
Any
All you have to do,
Go on,
all
John.
you have to do is, I was just going to say, all you have to do is get over the fact that we're going to use a flat plane to measure the angles. And then I can explain to you how it's a sphere.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Don't all go at once.
No evidence to the distance of the sun.
This is a good example of using the flat plane to measure the angles and then asserting it's a sphere to acquire a distance. You guys are just hung up on the flat plane part of all of this.
Well, that's kind of true. And I agree 100% with what you said. But even in celestial navigation, they're only interested in the angle, not the distance.
The angle of the dangle?
There's no dangle if you're measuring an angle.
Dingleberry can have a dangle angle.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, chocolate.
Well, I get how do they get the distance then? So obviously first they presuppose the radius of both the Earth and Venus. and then they just, say if we're on the other side of the sun 6 months from now, like, is that a triangle? How does that
Well, you
work?
missed a step. If you missed a step, because if Brian was here, he'd be saying, well, no, when you just say they presupposed, well, no, they took flat Earth elevation angle measurements to Polaris, didn't they? So part of what you just bundled into one, they presupposed sphere and Venus are and all that. Well, no, they had to start with a flat plane to derive elevation angles. Just thought I'd drop that in. Other than that,
Well,
yeah.
Kepler's law is a scaling value based on size relative to distance. So if you know the size of, say, Venus, then you can figure out the size of everything else in relation to it.
The evidence for
Why don't you
self-perpetuating.
just...
Oh, go on.
No, I was going to be sarcastic. Go ahead.
Any evidence of a so is I self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, Nathan, there is no evidence.
Any scientific evidence of gravity then?
Scientific evidence. We were speaking to this. He might have been a physics major. I'm not sure, but scientific evidence of gravity, no. And he agreed, because there's no process in which you can take someone's notes and repeat it in a lab setting to get the same results. And I was like, man, okay, great. You're going to be a flat earther tomorrow. Can't Google a hypothesis to follow, to do your own test, to confirm for yourself as the human being you are with the value you have, to figure out whether or not they're telling you the truth.
Yeah, I think this is an appropriate moment to read that out. Arwen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just like to reference this. I don't know if Professor Phil Bell minds, though, but it was hilarious when he actually said that in my chat. So, but yeah, Professor Phil Bell, staunch anti-flat earther, said both are just models, referring to Einsteinian and Newtonian gravity. Neither of them are real. We don't know what gravity actually is.
Well, in a way, that's kind of clever. Because he's still saying that gravity exists, he just doesn't know what gravity is. It's almost clever.
Quick
No,
shout.
he does kind of say neither of them are real. They're just models. So it's nothing.
Look at the last
But a
sentence.
model.
Right. He doesn't say that one of them works. It's basically saying, like, yeah, we need to find another gravity model because these aren't working. That's what he's saying.
But he's still saying that there is gravity. He says we don't know what gravity is.
Of course. It has to be there. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. Even though they don't know what it is, that has to be there. Because otherwise, nothing makes sense.
Using that verbiage, when we ask them what's the phenomena, they will then say, well, something's dropping. But this is where their hypotheses will fall apart. And it should end there with any reasonable human being.
Arwen, when you say he says nothing makes sense, is he saying it or you saying it?
No, that's me saying that.
Okay.
That's
Well, I
me.
think you're onto something there, because nothing does make sense if they live on a globe without gravity. So they need it, but they don't have it.
Right. But it's really weird, though, and paradoxical that they assume that they need it, even though they don't know what it is that they need.
I know, that's the comical part about it.
Okay, I'm going to do a few quick shout-outs. So, first and foremost, Fibre Oats, thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Fibre Oats says, fix, break, fix. Thank you very much, and gives me $100. I think I know why it's such a big super chat, which I'll come to in a second, but thank you very much indeed for that. Let's just stick my screen share so this looks pretty while I'm doing these super chats. Thank you for sharing that, Arwin. Also, shout out to Sensual Goat. Now, Sensual Goat is the person that we talked about last week who did all the flyers. So I'll just read out his super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat first and foremost. I found an article detailing how students of in Amsterdam explained, quote, moon rock, unquote, that was donated to a local museum by NASA, only found out that it was petrified wood. I showed a baller and they said, quote, there's plenty more around. Yeah, thank you for the super chat, Sensual Goat. And indeed, I've gone to Leicester, I think it was, with Martin Liedtke and a few others, and had a look at their petrified wood that's claimed to be a moon rock. Shout out to Uncle Ben, who also sends a super chat. Thank you very much indeed. It says, Phil Bellend, such a see you next Tuesday. Yeah, thank you very much indeed for the super chats, all of you. I really do appreciate the support. And we will get back to housekeeping in just a second. But while I'm doing shout outs to very generous super chatters, I'm going to say, as I did at the top of the show, although there's a few more people watching now, I have got a GoFundMe running. So pinned at the top of the live chat and in the comments if you're watching after the fact. My GoFundMe campaign. So is this Sod's Law when it's the crappiest part of my YouTubing year? That's when things break. And today, whilst running a frequency response through my speakers, I don't want to say they blew, which just makes it sound like they went bang. They didn't actually go bang. They just stopped working. Anyway, they've gone bang. They've blown up. So best to phrase it, they're bust, and I need to fix them. So I've done a whole bunch of research, the whole boring paragraph. If you want to check out that boring nonsense, coupled with the fact I'm having a crap couple of months, I'm not embarrassed to say I'm going to have to stick my hand out and do a GoFundMe campaign. Sad though it is, I'm heartbroken, as these speakers are like my children. I've had them for 22 years. I'm very attached to them. That said, the replacement value is about 10 grand, so I'm definitely not going to be swapping them. I'm just going to fix them. But it would be appreciated if people can support me on my GoFundMe campaign. I'll shout it out till I raise enough money to actually pay for whatever parts I need to get them fixed. But that's enough of that shouting out. I'll carry on with housekeeping. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
10 more grand. 10.
Well, if you were in that field and you were a heliocentrist, you would need a flat plane to measure the angles to assert any phenomenon you did see within a model that has an R value. So they're not going to get to any viable hypothesis that way.
I tried to do this when I've just disturbed the flow to do shout outs to my GoFundMe, but I should really actually check if somebody has supported me. I'm glad I checked. So shout out to David Foster for supporting my GoFundMe. Woohoo, you're the first, my friend. Really appreciate your support. David Foster supports me a lot. Thank you very much. I know it's going to be all the regular faces, and I will shout out with the same level of appreciation and thanks I always do. But thank you for kicking the ball off or getting the ball rolling. David Foster, really appreciate your support. Check out my GoFundMe. Did we cover single viable hypothesis, or anybody else got anything to add to that?
Well, I was going to say on the petrified wood, maybe some NASA believers can log in and tell us what they think.
Boom, boom.
Log in.
But if you want to see that, just go through one of my old playlists. I think it's in Visits or something. It is on the front page of my Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. On one of those playlists, there's me, Martin, and as I say, half a dozen other people just wandering around the NASA museum and laughing at stuff. So, for instance, some of the claimed to have been rockets that go up into the sky vacuum, you can peek through the gaps and see that they're all held together with duct tape, ratchet straps, zip ties, and dreams. It's just laughable when you know what you should be looking for, right? Because if you're just there in awe of, wow, this stuff's been to space, you're not going to peer through the cracks, see if you can get a glance of what's actually inside it, you know? So there we go. Check it out if you want to see the petrified wood. Go on, whoever that was.
No, I said I would. I would definitely try to see what's going on in there, and then just have a good whole laugh.
Yeah, it was not long after that news broke, and like I say, we wanted to see that. We knew that they'd got a moon rock up in Leicester, so we were like, let's just do a flat Earth visit. This was when Martin and myself were extremely small YouTubers. Martin's massive now. Good on you, Martin. But back in the day when we weren't, like I say, we took half a dozen people around that museum and just looked at space stuff, including, and most importantly, that claimed to be moon rock. Any evidence you can have gas pressure? That would be a sky vacuum without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon. That would be the gas pressure we're breathing.
No.
Are we going with net container 0 today, or
You need containers.
actually?
You're going to need
Go
a
ahead, man.
container for a vacuum, and you're going to need a container for gas pressure. So either way, they lose.
Is net
Sometimes you're just getting hung up on details, man.
Is net container 0 like another way of trying to claim that two containers in conjunction with one another cancel each other out, therefore net container 0? Is that sort of where you're going with that? I had to think about it for a second.
Yep. That's exactly what I was doing.
I thought he was doing the pun on Martin Leakey.
Leaky because it's a net. Wouldn't make a great container for gas. It's leadkey. Liedtke. Leadkey.
It doesn't matter when you pun.
I know, but I've got this opportunity to plug Martin Leedker, isn't it? Leadkey? Leadker? I think I say it right correctly the first time.
Perfect, perfect time.
Anyway, I think we've covered all the housekeeping questions with the exception of any evidence of the R value. That would be Earth radius.
Well, they assume it. They haven't proven it. And they always come in with the question as if they already had it and start the conversation after they assume they have an R value.
Well, but first they'll presuppose that it's a flat plane to get the radius. Then they'll keep presupposing that it's a sphere.
Well, that concludes the housekeeping. Don't think I missed any.
Did we do the molten iron core?
Yeah, we did the molten iron core, dropped it in at an appropriate moment. We didn't do axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
Because there is none.
Yeah, we did.
Did we? No, we did them all. Excellent. Well, that's good, with nearly 100 people watching. So please share the show if you've not done so already. If you are watching because somebody else has shared it, thank you very much to all the people who've already shared the show. That's probably why there's best part of 100 people watching right now, which isn't bad.
Well,
20 odd minutes in.
Let's summarize the housekeeping questions. How many years have we been asking these housekeeping questions?
About 4 or 5.
And has anyone successfully come on the globe side to set us straight?
We wouldn't be asking them. It's not like McToon asking us if we're going to take up his challenge and then completely ignoring the fact that he needs a flat Earth elevation angle acquisition before he sets his challenge. In other words, in the first instance, flat Earth's been proven by the acquisition of the angle that's used in the challenge. Now, it doesn't matter that I've told him now, and I kid you not, 50 separate times in my comments where he comes to plug that challenge, which nobody's shown him any interest in. So he was telling me in the comments, I haven't had a single person even get in touch about it. If you were a salesman, you'd have failed. Your promotion has failed on its arse if nobody's got in touch with you, McToon. That's your level of interest in your challenge. Now, there's plenty of takers for the Bitcoin challenge, isn't there? We see them and hear from them, and then we don't have to use an argument from silence fallacy and a total ignorance of the debunking of your challenge before it's even got off the ground. We don't have to do any of that. We just get people coming in looking for Bitcoin to try and prove a sphere. They fail on their ass, and we can highlight those failures. But no one's even got in touch with him. It's an abject failure on all scores. It's been out for over a month. Yeah, just keep ignoring the next 50 renditions of the fact that you require a flat plane to get an elevation angle in the first instance, Toon. You might beat Conspiracy Cat's record of 100+ repetitions. He was obviously gas pressure without a container. You're the elevation angle. It makes no difference. Sticking your head in the sun doesn't change the fact that you needed a flat Earth to do your challenge. I'll count that as 51 because I know you watch.
When will you flat earthers learn that just because you're taking an angle measurement from the surface, it has nothing to do with the surface?
Yeah, that's a quote.
And just because you measure Just because you measure a horizontal plane doesn't mean it's a horizontal plane.
These are quotes we're getting. I'm not fast enough on my fingers to get them. But one of them was the one I sent, so I assume that's the second one Chocolate gave was also a quote from a baller. But that's what we're getting. Something else I point out to Tune. Yeah, it won't take long, Tune. You'll be begging me for a plane, hinting at Euclid and tangents without actually saying them. Yeah, that's your first step to begging me for a flat plane to take the angle from. Yeah, you'll need that before you do any of your challenge. Yeah, like the other fundies are doing, going blue in the face, telling us how flat it is on their sphere, and how it's really easy to get a flat Earth on a sphere. That's what they're telling us right now.
Nobody's claiming the ground under the mountain is curving. Nobody's claiming that.
Until Biruni climbs up to the top and then claims that the ground beneath it's curving and he's measuring a tangent to a curved surface after measuring it flat.
I mean, of course, when Globers are talking about elevation angles, we're not talking about the surface.
Woohoo! 100 people watching. Really appreciate that people have shared the show. Definitely wouldn't be getting there if it wasn't for you. So we've had another one, an example that's because bloody OBS crashed. Well, a day I could do without it with things breaking around me. Anyway, on the pre-show, that's now going to be a completely separate show, out on Sunday or out on Monday if you're watching on the on the second channel. Anyway, we were talking about the guy who came along in regards to how not curved or how you can exclude or ignore the curve if you're trying to get an elevation angle or a shadow measurement that doesn't include the sun. It's like, well, it's just basically flat. It's like, right, so you're now justifying how non-sphery it is to get this angle measurement and how basically it's not sphery at all if I need an angle. Right, John?
Oh, yeah. They'll tell you about how flat it is, how flat their globe is. And they'll start even trying to quantify it, how flat it is. Well, but see, it doesn't matter. If it's a curve, you're not getting an angle from a curved baseline. So if you're going to use the Earth to get your angles, you're in trouble.
You know what's funny to me is I continue to remember the last time, I think it was Highlander was here. And he was actually arguing, what, you can't have any flat surfaces on a sphere. Like, and he, for some reason, like, he couldn't understand that. Like, bro, you're fighting for a sphere here, and you're telling us that it just seems weird that you can't have a flat plane, a horizontal plane on a sphere? No. Like, it's almost like the argument is completely reversed. It's very weird right now. Then you have Zanuck the other day. Yeah, we used a flat plane. Yeah, Okuma virus. Oh yeah, tangential plane. Yeah. I mean, that's what they keep saying, the word plane. How do you have a plane on a sphere?
You don't. Earth is flat, measured flat, navigated flat, and they're begging us for a flat plane to get an angle that requires Earth to be flat to measure it. So they're justifying having a tangent, debunked in 2020 by the Black Swan, plane. And which bit's actually used? Is it the justification for the dingleberry Earth dangling by a tangent in any way, shape or form when they do these measurements and navigate the surface? No, that bit isn't used. So the tangent bit is just a justification for a dingleberry Earth dangling beneath a flat plane you're actually navigating. So given that the tangent point they're not actually using or measuring isn't actually required and was debunked in 2020, all we're left with is a flat plane. The Earth is obviously, observably, measurably and navigatably flat.
Nathan, I posted a slide in Mastery. Can you go to it, please?
I sure can. I'll be there, just start whenever. I'll have it up in a second.
No problem. Well, I'm just more clarity on what's going on, and I'd like the panel to comment on it. I mean, these are all from their books, so it's interesting when we cite their own books. We obviously know how to read English, so we're reading the language it's written in. Then they come back at us and say, we don't know what we're doing. We're saying, well, we're just going to the books that document celestial navigation, and we're just reading from them, and we're saying this is what's being said about the sextant and about angle measurements. Why are you fighting so hard? Oh, well, it doesn't work on the globe, huh? But it's got pictures
You
of
just don't understand, Sam.
I just don't understand. All right. Here we
That's
go.
it.
Here we go. Everyone hopefully could see the top picture of a celestial sphere. And that's the celestial equator highlighted in that light blue, I guess that would be. And the blue arrow from north going clockwise is your azimuth direction. And then you got the sun, it looks like, and the elevation angle. And then the coaltitude is the green arrow labeled Z for zenith angle. And that dot in the middle would be the Earth. Okay, so that's the celestial sphere. And the Earth is the center of that. And they don't show Earth as a globe here. They show there's a big old flat plane to the celestial concave, the inside of that supposed fictitious, imaginary celestial sphere. So let's read. In reality, the observer is not, bold print, not by me, located on the plane of the celestial horizon. Figure 1.2 shows the 3 horizontal planes relevant to celestial navigation. This should be interesting. Okay, we see the bottom picture. We see an image of a supposed Earth with the center marked with a 90 box. Interesting. That celestial horizon in the above picture is a plane, after all, and where you can get 90 degrees because they need it. So they presuppose they get it from there. But he just said on top, worth reading again. In reality, that's reality, the observer is not located on the plane of the celestial horizon. Figure 1.2 shows the 3 horizontal planes relevant to celestial navigation. So we see here the zenith, the observer, and his eye is clearly marked as the sensible horizon. Okay, where you have that right angle triangle and the baseline is at your eye height, where your eye is. This could be achieved with a plumb bob or a bubble sextant. Then you got something called the geoidal horizon, and that's just as flat as the sensible horizon baseline is. And then we got something called the celestial horizon, which is the center of the Earth where the plane is that nobody in reality is at, but where they have all the representations of measurements in the nautical almanac emanating from. Let's read the bottom paragraph. The celestial horizon is the horizontal plane passing through the center of the Earth, which coincides with the center of the celestial sphere. The geoidal horizon is the horizontal plane tangent to the Earth at the observer's position. The sensible horizon is the horizontal plane passing through the observer's eye. These 3 planes are parallel to each other. So I wonder what dip correction does with the geoidal horizon. Is it an added number or is it a subtractive number? Well, it's a subtractive number. Height of eye above sea level gives you a parallel to match the flat baseline of the sensible and the presupposed flat baseline of the celestial equator, matching our equatorial equator. It's good night for the globe. They all need flat baselines or the sextant can't work and navigation will never work off a curved surface. Any comments?
No? Good
Well,
presentation. Go on, John.
I'd just like to point out the top one is a flat Earth model, and the bottom one doesn't work with the top one. They're not the same thing. They're messing up.
Anyone else? Any other comments before I take it off? Hello, Sleeping Warrior. Or is it Brian? My bad. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everyone.
How's it going?
Good. Can I talk for a couple of minutes? Sorry.
Oh, no worries. No, good presentation, 10th.
Big Brian.
Go ahead.
Oakley?
Yeah, I was just saying good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Adam, Neil, Arwen.
Sorry about that. My kids interrupted me. But yeah, the top picture showed the flat Earth model that's based on perspective. That's what we see put into a side-on view. The bottom one has nothing to do with the top one. They're just saying it does. But if the bottom one were true, the top one wouldn't be, you wouldn't observe that.
Right on. I thought more people would comment on that. Go ahead, Chocolate.
I'm just wondering why they're not. I mean, if this is so silly what we're saying, why are there not more Globers like beating down this door to try to tell us how stupid and wrong we are? And what's going on?
I don't know.
Is it that they realize now they sound like flat earthers arguing for a flat plane that they need to take elevation angles from? I mean, has it come to that now? Any Globers in here want to come tell us how you need a plane to measure your elevation angles? Or you're going to tell us how to do it on a sphere, but then pretend it's a flat plane first, and then pretend it's a sphere? I mean, which way are we going with this? What point do you guys just say, yeah, it's flat? It's like, come on.
That's one of the things about arguing with the fact. If I hold up a rock and say this is a rock, it's not an argument. It's just what is.
Exactly.
Measuring an angle, you're using two straight lines. They're trying to argue with facts at this point. And the only bit of weasel room that they can think to manage is to say that the plane has nothing to do with the ground. It's delusion.
That was great.
Which is retarded because... Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, the reason that's retarded, John, is because after you've done this, I guess, hypothetical work on a plane where you establish GP, I guess then when you travel to where you're going, how is it not related? You're doing it to travel literally.
On the surface.
No, you're just missing their paraphrasing or missing out, if you will, their actual statement, which is when we draw out a tangent debunked in 2020, plane that we can never acquire off a spherical surface, the ground we think we have on a sphere bears no relation to the plane you're actually measuring and navigating along. Their sphere ground. There you go. Whoever that was who was causing the feedback. Who was that in Discord? Go ahead. No one wants to fess up. They've opened their mic. They've caused the feedback now, and now they're silent because they don't want to admit it. They had something to say, or they wouldn't have opened their mic. Go on, don't be shy. Whoever that was that opened their mic, you obviously wanted to say something.
Man, they're so good. They'll take it anywhere they can.
Okay, clearly just wanted to cause feedback, whoever that was. Thank you so much for your participation. Flat Earth required, basically.
So you can say it two ways. Sorry, Brian. Oh, well, unless you're limited, then you go first.
No, I go after you. It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so celestial navigation only works if the Earth is a level plane, or the surface. We have a level plane for the surface of the Earth. In celestial navigation, you use elevation angles, and you require a plane. Now, celestial navigation only works on a sphere, and that is why we take elevation angle measurements and utilize the tangent point to a plane. So one says you require a sphere, but we're going to utilize a plane. And one says we live on a sphere and we're going to use the plane. I mean, we live on a plane and we're going to use the plane. I mean, other than my little mix up there, are we speaking English or what? Like, why is it so hard? I'm so confused.
Eli, how many horizons must a baller have?
Just one.
No,
because it's the
two. Minimum two.
Have?
Minimum two.
Well, because of their rhetoric or what?
Apparent,
well,
which is redundant. That would be the apparent position where the sky meets the ground or sea, and geometric, the non-visible, non-measurable Earth curve edge that formerly blocked boats and buildings.
Well, if I was a glober with a religion but not any actually practice, no actual practice, never went to look at anything or do anything, I just had this belief in the sphere, then I would have one horizon as dictated in the maths.
Well, let me continue with that questioning. How many horizons must a globe believer have? And the answer is as many as needed.
Infinite.
As many as needed, because they've got the celestial horizon, which is the celestial sphere, equatorial plane cutting through the equator of the Earth. It's the same. Okay. They've got the sensible horizon, which is at your eye line. You can do that with a plumb bob or a bubble sextant. And then you've got the surface of the Earth, right, which is, according to them, a sphere curving. And you've got the horizon we all see where the sky seems to touch the sea or Earth. The one that we all see, we only see one horizon unless we do it to our eye line, and we can parallel the actual horizon, just shown in the previous pictures, because they all must match. So just by the fact that they confess that all their angle measurements come from the center of an equatorial plane, is saying it has to be flat, which means everything and all the other horizons they come up with have to be flat. It can't change. You can't have one working off flat, one working off curve. So they're not even saying that. They're saying all the measurements come from the center of the Earth where the equatorial plane is. So they need a plane for angle measurements. They just can't have one on the surface when it curves. So they take it to a fictitious center and cut the Earth in half so they can get their plane. So when they cite sensible horizon, that's got to be a plane to your eye line. When they cite the horizon with the sextant mirror on the actual sea and do dip correction, that's got to, after dip, be parallel to the sensible as well as the equatorial. So all three lines have to be three planes, no matter what. And they're arguing angle measurements for this. Are they this stupid?
Well, having that many horizons, it's got to be a kick in the teeth when only one exists.
Yes.
And asking us for the use of a flat plane to measure the surface, navigate the surface, and then claim that somehow there's a relation to something that hasn't been measured or used or, according to them, isn't even in relation to their sphere surface when they're talking about a tangent plane that they are measuring. I mean, don't they get it? They're begging for a plane at the moment. Clearly not. Their rhetoric has left them in such cognitive dissonance that they're happy to bark at us till they're blue in the face about how much of a flat plane they can get out of their sphere. It's nuts.
And you know,
So, man.
Well, let me finish on that note. So they get so crazy that the visible horizon, the one we see, is their geometric in a sense, but we can't see their geometric because of the weather.
But the geometric horizon is closer than the apparent one. How's the weather? Well, usually when there are weather conditions that are that are less than desirable, you can see less. I've never heard of, because of weather conditions that are that are because so many things are happening that there's a bunch of distortion going on. I can see further. That's not a thing. But I wanted to ask you about the sextant. Which horizon does that one work with?
The one we see with our eyes where the sky seems to meet the earth, the only one.
They don't work with any of the other ones?
No, in fact, let me read you something here. Let me read you. This is so telling because I set traps everywhere and they keep falling into it, but this one's so good. I'm going to spring it on them. None of the above horizontal planes coincides with the visible horizon, the line where the Earth's surface and the sky appear to meet. Calculations of celestial navigation always refer to the geocentric altitude of a body, the altitude measured by a fictitious observer being on the plane of the celestial horizon at the center of the Earth, which coincides with the center of the celestial sphere. They live in a model.
Shout out to, I think it's Ask Dad Anything for hitting the super chat. Just get rid of that annoying banner. Really appreciate your support. Yes, it is Ask Dad Anything for the super chat. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And it is a useful opportunity for me to shout out my own GoFundMe campaign, which I've got currently running. So a bit of repair work needed on a blown speaker that went bang, metaphorically speaking, and doesn't work, so I need to repair it. And I've started a GoFundMe campaign. Links in the info box, and there's one pinned in the live stream chat if you'd like to check it out. There is also a little blurb about my broken speaker and my woes financially. Obviously, I wouldn't be putting my hand out unless I absolutely had to. I'd rather do these things myself, but it looks like I am going to need a bit of support. So massive shout out to David Foster for getting the ball rolling on my GoFundMe campaign. Hit the link below, or if you just want to hit me up on PayPal, smash the PayPal link and send me money that way. Obviously, all help is greatly appreciated, and massive thanks to all of you so far supported. If you're watching this on a re-up and you've smashed my GoFundMe link, thank you, really appreciate it. I will give you an individual shout out as and when you do support that particular campaign. Thanks again. Ask Dad Anything.
Well, the marine sextant is designed to work with the visible sea horizon. So they only got one horizon that they take an angle measurement to.
Yeah. We only have one horizon. The horizon, in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, was, prior to 2020, a physical Earth curve obstruction. Not anymore. Now they claim there's no straight lines to anything, it's always refracted. So therefore we've got a refracted horizon, and a sensible horizon, and an astronomical horizon, and a geometric horizon. The list of horizons is never ending. In reality, we've only got one. It's just not Earth curve.
Interestingly,
The apparent horizon.
Hang on. Interestingly enough, no matter how many horizons they come up with, Nathan, they're all flat planes.
Well, the geometric horizon is not and cannot be a projection of the apparent horizon. I mean, specifically because they don't state that it is. There's just a new horizon form because there's light coming from a much further point to your eye. So again, where's the geometric horizon? The horizon that's only 1 mile away. I mean, if I broke out my binoculars right now and I look down the road 1 mile, whatever was there at 1 mile, I would expect to be there at 1 mile. So if there's obstruction at 1 mile, I should definitely be able to see it. But even still, the geometric horizon isn't the apparent horizon. So
you just don't understand how to use binoculars, man.
That's right. Unfortunately, when it's a thought experiment and only exists in the math, you really can't put your fingers on it.
Just for the audience's benefit, that and this and it is Earth curve that we're talking about. When we say you should be able to see it, well, no, you shouldn't. Your only inference is that there should be a geometric spheroid horizon in the way at 1 mile. Why should there be? Because there's a fundamentalist religious zealot belief that we've got to horizon that's Earth curve, that, quote, should be blocking things, and if it isn't, it's just refraction. Well, no, why should it be blocking things? Because we've got a physical obstruction in their maths. Well, if it's a physical obstruction, it's always obstructing things. It's never going to move beyond its geometric limitations. Black swan.